The entire capital is abuzz with rumors that I and my archrival, the Crown Prince, are a match made in heaven. On the day of the imperial marriage decree, I kowtowed loudly before the emperor, Uncle Gu. Even if every man in the world turned into a yellow dog, I would never fall for Gu Shen. Gu Shen followed right after. Father, I would rather become a monk than marry her. When I woke up, I found myself 5 years in the future. It seems I not only married this guy but also gave birth to 2 kids for him. The air was filled with the pleasant scent of sandalwood. When I woke up, I felt a slight metallic taste in my throat and a sense of thirst. While still puzzled, a pair of hands swiftly yet gently reached over to wipe my face. However, these hands were unusually cold, and the moment they touched my chin, a shiver ran through me, forcing my eyelids open with great effort. Thank heavens, the Empress has finally awakened. Quickly, go outside and inform Physician Jiang and Physician Zhong, Qingyuan, bring the ginseng soup at once. Qingyun, the princess consort has awakened. Quickly send someone to inform the emperor. I only vaguely heard the sound of footsteps and responses in the room, which were quite numerous. I was a bit confused about the situation. How did I end up in the Guanju Palace instead of my bedroom in the general's residence after waking up? Moreover, there was a circle of palace maids surrounding me, all with worried and anxious expressions on their faces. I was lost in confusion when a young eunuch hurried over and knelt beside me. Your Majesty, the Emperor has arrived. My face showed only 2 words, bewilderment. Me, the Empress, no way. While I was still in a daze, a person dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe walked in. That guy was clearly Gu Shen. He grabbed my hand in an instant. He was wearing a bright yellow robe embroidered with a soaring dragon over turbulent seas. His sharp eyebrows and starry eyes looked especially cold and stern. The gaze he directed at me was as devoid of warmth as usual, and his expression seemed somewhat gloomy. Oh my heavens, who set up this prank? Don't they know that if Uncle Gu finds out about this, someone's going to get beaten to death? And on top of that, this guy and I are sworn enemies. How absurd of him to trick me into thinking I was the Empress. I glared at the person in front of me with annoyance. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him, so I simply pushed him aside and tilted my head up at him. Gu Shen, we agreed to go see Tuanzi and Yuanzi. Even if you don't want to see me, you don't have to jump into the lotus pond. The man's voice was rather cold, deep, and slightly magnetic. It was somewhat different from Gu Shen's clear and bright tone. It gave me a feeling that was both unfamiliar and familiar. I took another careful look at the man in front of me. I hesitantly called out, Gu Shen, what do you want? Just kill me with a knife instead. I really can't bear to watch you hurt yourself over and over just to leave me. I'm really starting to lose it with this kind of mutual torment. I had never seen Gu Shen like this before. As the Crown Prince, he had always been proud and exceptional since childhood. I had never seen him in such a pitiful and humble state, with such fragile and vulnerable eyes. However, after all, we grew up together as childhood friends. Seeing him like this, I wasn't feeling too great either. But after getting a definite answer, I got carried away and thought all of this was an act orchestrated by Gu Shen with others. I said bluntly, don't you have anything better to do, teaming up with them to pull this stunt? Who made any plans with you? Hearing me say that, Gu Shen became a bit anxious. Tuanzi and Yuanzi are sick. I thought for a moment and confirmed that I had never heard these names before. These names somehow share a similar charm to that of Big Yellow Dog. When did you secretly get other dogs behind Big Yellow Dog's back? Shunshishu. The man in front of me suddenly and inexplicably flew into a rage, looking at the maids kneeling on the floor, trembling like quails. But I just found it utterly baffling. Gu Shen, did you take the wrong medicine tonight? This prank is really boring. Noticing that something was off about me, the maid beside me, who had been keeping her head down, immediately grabbed my hand. Your Majesty, it might be that when she accidentally fell into the lotus pond today, she choked on water and has been somewhat disoriented ever since. This statement was clearly meant to excuse me, but upon hearing this, Gu Shen immediately called the imperial physician to examine my head. Your mischief should have its limits. If Uncle Gu finds out later, watch out for your skin. Gu Shen didn't speak, but instead looked at the imperial physician who was taking my pulse. "How is the Empress?" The physician lowered his head and replied, "Her Majesty's body is not seriously ill, but her head may have been hit when she fell into the water, which is why she has this symptom of amnesia. Amnesia, if you misdiagnose, I will have your life." Hearing this, I had no choice but to quickly grab Jiyu Xian's dragon robe sleeve and whisper, "Jiyu Xian, what madness is this? This is going too far. I had just turned 15 this year. I had just refused Uncle Gu's arranged marriage, and after returning home to sleep, for some unknown reason, I ended up in the Guanju Palace. Not only did my rival say there was something wrong with my head, but he also teamed up with a group of people to claim the same. Question: should I give him a couple of slaps later to snap him back to his senses? Oh no, it was my 2 slaps plus Uncle Gu's kick. He actually dared to say there's something wrong with my brain, and even dared to wear the dragon robe. Who would have thought? That bastard Jiyu Xian didn't care at all about what I said. He stared fixedly at me, a hint of madness gleaming in his eyes, just like the little wolf my brother raised for me. His low voice still carried a hint of obsession, even though it was June. I could hear the desolation of autumn in his words. "Shunshu, have you really forgotten? You're not pretending, are you?" I looked at the plea and longing in Jiyu Xian's eyes, feeling a little confused. In the end, I could only sit on the couch, patting Jiyu Xian's hand soothingly as I tried to reason with him gently. "Wait, aren't we supposed to be rivals? Stop looking at me with those affectionate eyes." Ever since I finished speaking, Jiyu Xian had been staring at me without saying a word. I looked at the palace maids and eunuchs kneeling all over the floor. The scene was truly awkward. I could only poke Jiyu Xian's waist. It was his most vulnerable spot. Every time we fought, I'd poke him there. All right, wherever you want me to go with you, I'll go. Just don't look like you're about to fall apart. It's really unsettling to see you like this." As soon as I finished speaking, a flicker of surprise passed through Jiyu Xian's dark eyes. After dismissing everyone, I had the palace maids change me into a golden gown embroidered with phoenixes and a flowing yellow ancient patterned butterfly cloud water skirt that trailed along the ground. Hiss, isn't this the style of the Empress Aunt's clothing? If I wear this and act alongside Jiyu Xian, will she blame me? The palace maid draped me in the misty gauze of peonies and green clouds, and as I looked at myself in the full-length bronze mirror, with my hair styled in a high cloud-like bun and adorned with the 5 phoenixes facing the sun pearl hairpin, I felt both familiar and strange in an instant. Jiyu Xian, upon seeing me after I was dressed, quickly stepped forward and took my hand, leading me outside. The man's large hand was dry and warm, firmly holding mine in his palm. After all, I'm still a young girl. I could feel my face growing slightly warm, and my heart was pounding uncontrollably in my chest. For a moment, I lost control and wanted to shake off his hand, but he quickly led me to the Ruihua Palace, where I used to stay during my time in the palace. Through the bed curtains, I could see a little girl lying on the couch. Jiyu Xian seemed much calmer now, though he still hadn't let go of my hand. His tone remained indifferent. "Yuanzi will be very happy to see you when she wakes up." I didn't respond, but I thought to myself, as the life of the party, who wouldn't be happy to see me? At the same time, I keenly sensed someone slowly approaching me. I immediately turned around, and the little boy froze in place, proudly clasping his hands behind his back as he looked at me. Those big, watery eyes blinked at me. Oh Tilda, my heart is melting. I couldn't help but lean down and pinch his little cheek, so soft. "Wow, Jiyu Xian, he looks exactly like your proud and silly self when you were a kid, like he was carved from the same mold. But he looks much cuter than you did. This child looks so much like you. Is he your little brother who was lost outside, or your illegitimate child?" I felt like I had discovered a new continent and was just about to ask Jiyu Xian for confirmation. But when I turned my head, I met Jiyu Xian's gaze, which looked at me as if I were a fool. "Shunshu, he is your child." Hearing this, I felt as if struck by lightning and stood there frozen in place. Suddenly, the little boy next to me hugged my leg. "Does mother really not want Jinyi anymore?" Hearing this, I looked at the little boy in front of me and the face of the little girl on the bed. The little girl looked exactly like I did when I was a child. Are they really my children? When I realized it was true, I went cold all over and fainted. When I woke up again, the sky was already bright. What woke me was not an ideal, but the gentleness of the little palace maid. Qingyun, Your Highness, it's time to rise. His Majesty will be coming to dine with you after the morning court session. My first reaction was to look around, but I soon fell silent again. I was still in the Guanju Palace, which used to be the residence of Ji Yuxian's mother, the Empress, but now it's me lying here, listening to Qingyun's voice, with no desire to get up, just staring blankly at the carved canopy above the bed. Until Ji Yuxian came in, I couldn't help but throw my arms around him and start wailing. Wah, Ji Yuxian, how did I wake up 5 years older? A whole 5 years, Ji Yuxian. Even though we've been rivals since we were kids, considering we've fought our way into some kind of friendship over the years, let's sign a temporary truce for now. Ji Yuxian held me in his arms, his gaze complex. It seems you really did hit your head when you fell into the lotus pond. Hearing him say that I wasn't right in the head, I gritted my teeth and glared at him. Then I bit his arm hard. Since I was little, whenever I couldn't win a fight, I would bite him. He stared at me in a daze. The next moment, he smiled and held me tightly in his arms. After having breakfast with Ji Yuxian, I wiped my mouth with his sleeve and looked at him. Tell me, what exactly happened in these past 5 years? Strangely enough, after confirming that I had truly lost my memory, Ji Yuxian's mood improved significantly. He no longer wore a perpetually gloomy expression, as if I owed him a fortune. Now, the corners of his lips often carried a faint smile. And he had returned to his former proud and Sunda Crown Prince demeanor. His expression was as irritating as ever, and his words were just as annoying. In short, you fell in love with me, pestered me relentlessly, and waited outside the Eastern Palace every day to confess your feelings, saying you couldn't live without me in this lifetime. You even threatened to squat outside the palace gates like a big yellow dog if I refused. I couldn't resist you, so I reluctantly gave in. Then, the emperor arranged our marriage. A year after we married, he abdicated the throne to me and left with the empress to enjoy their lives. We had these 2 children. Our son's nickname is Tuanzi, and his formal name is Ji Eugenie. Our daughter's nickname is Yuanzi, and her formal name is Ji Jining. But you, fickle as ever, stopped cherishing me once you had me. These nicknames are so silly, they sound like a big yellow dog's name. I couldn't help but mutter under my breath upon hearing the children's nicknames. I said the same thing back then, but you insisted on giving it that name. As he spoke, he pretentiously wiped away non-existent tears, with the background scene of the 2 kids beside him calling out Mother Empress in unison. Seeing this, I was completely speechless. Ji Yuxian, you might as well just tell me straight that my brain is broken. How could I have begged and pleaded to be with you? Ji Yuxian's face darkened at my words, and he shoved the 2 little ones into my arms. Then tell me, how did these 2 come about? Ji Yuxian actually used the children to argue back. Look at Tuanzi's eyes, they're so much like yours. And if not Tuanzi, just look at Yuanzi, she's practically a carbon copy of you. After thinking it over, I blurted out, oh, I see, Ji Yuxian, you sly fox, you must have forced me. Hearing this, the man's expression instantly turned grim. All right, Ji Yu the fox. I was just joking. After a long while, Ji Yuxian's eyes swirled with emotions I couldn't quite decipher, but his gaze toward me gradually grew intense. Actually, you were the one who forced me. Impossible, absolutely impossible. I was so startled that I dropped my meal, instinctively refuting him. Ji Yuxian gave me a faint glance. Do you have any proof? No, I haven't. That's how it is. The witnesses are me, the victim, and these 2 kids. I was speechless, to be honest. I really never expected I would end up with this nemesis of mine. If it weren't for the ironclad evidence of 2 kids, 5 years ago, I had just come of age, and the entire capital was spreading rumors that Ji Yuxian and I were a match made in heaven, and that I was certain to become the crown princess, after all. The story of the general's legitimate daughter and the crown prince growing up together has been sold countless times in the market. The number of people shipping me and my rival Ji Yuxian could line up hand in hand around the moat 6 times, but that very night, before the palace banquet even began, Ji Yuxian and I launched into a back-and-forth verbal battle. I accused him of being arrogant and overconfident, always wearing a sour expression. And said only a sycophant like Big Yellow would ever like him. He retorted that my colorful butterfly-pleated skirt made me look like a peacock flaunting its feathers, utterly self-absorbed, and claimed only a shallow, fawning fool like Little White would ever hover around me. Big Yellow is the dog I rescued from the West Market, now serving as the royal guard dog at the Eastern Palace Gate. Little White is the young fox he hunted in the eastern suburbs horse track. Now my beloved pet in the general's residence. Our verbal sparring didn't stop just because the banquet had started. I exposed his childhood fear of the dark, how he once got lost in the palace at night and clung to me, crying loudly. He called me out for pretending to be a lady by taking small, delicate steps, only to end up tripping all the time. We spent the whole evening bickering with each other. As a result, the Emperor, Uncle Gu, and the others looked at us with strange expressions and immediately decided to arrange a marriage between us. Upon hearing about the arranged marriage, I dropped to my knees with a thud and kowtowed loudly before the Emperor, Uncle Gu. Even if every man in the world turned into a big yellow dog, I would never fall for Gu Shen. If I were with him, I'd be bullied to death. Upon hearing my words, Gu Shen immediately followed up, "Father, I would rather become a monk than marry her." And so, the matter of the arranged marriage was dropped. After that, we started arguing again over our mutual disdain, thinking that one night of arguing with Gu Shen would be enough. But 5 years later, we ended up arguing for several more rounds over who forced whom. After having the nanny take the children back, Gu Shen carried me back into the inner chamber. The next day, a glimmer of light appeared on the horizon. Exhausted, I lay sprawled on the bed, drifting in and out of sleep. Meanwhile, Gu Shen had changed into a bright yellow dragon robe and crown, looking spirited and ready to attend the morning court session. Slowly, I raised a finger to point at him, my voice even hoarser than the day I had fallen into the water. "Gu, you sly fox, it must have been, definitely you, who forced me." Gu Shen straightened his court robes, looking at me with a radiant smile that swept away the gloom of the past 2 days. For some reason, seeing his smile made me inexplicably happy. But I didn't know why. Could it be just because I realized that, 5 years later, I seemed to be doing quite well? My thoughts drifted aimlessly as a young palace maid came over to help me freshen up. I looked in the mirror and was utterly shocked. That damn Gu Fox is a dog in disguise. My neck and hands were a complete mess. "Gu Fox, you're nothing but a dog." I stared at the impeccably dressed man in front of me, suppressing the urge to slap him, seeing how furious I was. Gu Shen took the comb from the maid and began gently combing my hair. "What's wrong? Last night you..." As I thought about the absurdity of last night, I wondered, is this what adult life is really like? You, shut up." Seeing my face flush all the way to the tips of my ears, he grinned so wide it looked like his smile might reach his ears. Chuckling to himself, he got ready to head to court. Gu Shen leisurely let down my hair. "I'm going to court. I'll come back and have a proper discussion with you once I'm done." "I don't want to." I immediately refused upon hearing this. He paid no attention to my protest, pinched my cheek, and left. I gritted my teeth as I watched Song Yangchu leave. When I was young, I was always bullied by Gu Shen. Now that I'm grown up, I'm still always bullied by him. I knew it. Marrying him would definitely mean being bullied. Life is so unpredictable. A young girl in the prime of her youth suddenly becomes a married woman and has 2 kids, leaving me completely caught off guard. I am doing my best to adapt to life 5 years later. According to the young palace maid Qingyun, my father and mother have gone on a long journey with the retired emperor and his entourage. My brother has moved with his wife and their entire family to the borderlands, leaving the general's mansion empty. Even though I already knew my parents were such free-spirited people, the unfamiliar feeling of not having a single relative nearby in the entire capital still sends chills down my spine. Qingyun also told me that in all these years in the imperial harem, I was the only woman. No wonder all of Gu the Fox's temper was directed at me alone. After some thought, I decided to go to the Eastern Palace today to see the 2 extra little ones I have, Tuanzi and Yuanzi. Tuanzi is the older brother. With a somewhat proud and cheeky personality, very much like Gu Shen when he was young, Yuenzi is the younger sister, lively and adorable, exquisitely delicate and charming like a little kitten, just like me when I was a child, holding one of their tiny hands in each of mine. I carefully grasped their little hands, afraid of hurting them. Yuenzi threw herself into my arms. Mother, you've never held me like this before, you're so gentle today, can you be like this from now on? Yuenzi isn't greedy, just hold me like this once a day, okay? Looking at this little darling before me, I don't know what I did in the past to make these two little ones so desperate for my love, but the memories of the past 5 years are like a thick fog to me. I can't see anything clearly, and as for the future, I have no idea how to go on living. I was pestered by my two little darlings until it was time for dinner. After having dinner with them, Yuenzi ran over and hugged me tightly, pressing her chubby little face against mine and nuzzling it. Mother Tilda, can you sleep with Yuenzi tonight? I gave Yuenzi a big kiss on the cheek. Alright, Mother will hold you to sleep tonight. Hearing my words, the little one snuggled contentedly into my arms. The little bun sitting nearby, however, appeared particularly aloof, even though he was trying to act like a proper older brother on the surface. He was still just a little kid at heart. The anticipation and longing in his eyes were impossible to hide. Would you like Mother to stay with you tonight, little bun? I asked patiently. Upon hearing this, Twanzi's face immediately turned red. After I gave him a smacking kiss, I also pulled Twanzi into my arms. He shyly snuggled into my embrace, but still proudly insisted that he was only willing to sleep with me to keep his little sister company. Amused, I prepared to take them to wash up and get ready for bed. Unexpectedly, as soon as I turned around, someone pulled me into their arms and kissed my forehead. Startled, I looked up and realized it was Ji Yuxian, whom I had stood up. My face instantly flushed bright red, and I quickly pushed him away. Ji Yuxian, watch your behavior, there are still 2 kids here. Hearing my words, Ji Yuxian not only showed no sign of embarrassment but even kissed my cheek again. Your esteemed Majesty the Empress, we are husband and wife. Our affection is meant to create a warm family atmosphere for the children, and accompanying me is also a duty you, as the Empress, must fulfill. I gritted my teeth and said, you're so glib, you're twisting the truth. Ji Yuxian looked at me with a smile in his eyes, the corners of his lips almost reaching the back of his head. Could it be that the Empress feels she's at a disadvantage for being kissed by me? Well, you're more than welcome to kiss me back, I don't mind at all. Looking at that unbearably smug expression, I couldn't help but feel the urge to bite him a couple of times. Our eyes met. I saw those captivating eyes of his swirling with ambiguous emotions. Just like last night, this guy was planning to bully me again. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. The same person. Still as annoying as ever. Thinking of this, I actually calmed down completely. 5 years later, it didn't seem so terrifying after all. At least this guy hadn't changed, still in need of a good scolding. Didn't you say back then that you'd rather become a monk than marry me? Taking advantage of Ji Yuxian eating dinner alone, I sat nearby and asked, yes, what about it? Then why did you still marry me? I instinctively asked. But after a glance from the man, I suddenly remembered that I could no longer outwit this guy and quickly changed my tone. Did you only realize later that you've fallen in love with me? And so deeply at that? 5 years ago, this kind of pathetic state was something I had never experienced in front of my rival, Ji Yuxian. I couldn't help but feel a bit resentful that I had ended up in the palace just like that. Don't I have my own ideals and ambitions? Why didn't I become a female general? Ever since I learned to walk, I've loved wielding swords and spears. My marksmanship is quite renowned in the army. Although I can't beat Ji Yuxian, my physique is top-notch. It shouldn't have led me to only become an empress. No, your ambitions have changed, Ji Yuxian said calmly. What did I become? The man suddenly lifted his head, gazing at me affectionately, and without a hint of shame, uttered a single word, me. It took me a few seconds to process what I had just heard. Once I realized what he meant, I immediately demonstrated the martial arts skills I had honed back in the day. That night, the bed in the Eastern Palace's inner chamber was a bit crowded. I held Yuenzi in one arm and Twanzi in the other, while Ji Yuxian slept alone at the edge of the bed. Let him go. Under the guise of building rapport, he stubbornly insisted on staying here. You said your father would definitely like this 5 phoenixes facing the sun spear, right, Mother Empress? Are you sure it's not that you like it? Your eyes are practically sparkling. There was a hint of helplessness in Tuanzi's tone of voice. I couldn't put down the spear in my hands. Turning it over and over as I examined every inch, hearing those words, I immediately retorted with righteous indignation. Nonsense. It was your father who wanted it. That's why he sent me here to pick one out. The little one was utterly bewildered by this explanation. Just as I lifted the spear tip, ready to show my child what it means to wield a spear like a coiling dragon, I accidentally knocked over the rack next to the armory, as I instinctively shielded the little one beside me. A slender figure stepped forward and blocked the path behind me. He was dressed in the shadowy attire of the hidden dragon guard, his face concealed by a black mask, revealing only a pair of sharp, piercing eyes. After a series of crackling sounds, I stared at the mess on the ground and quickly thanked the man. Unexpectedly, he moved even closer to me. Shua, didn't you say you wanted to leave this place with me? I was utterly confused by these words. Buddy, who are you? The man's sharp eyes were fixed on me, with an unexpectedly affectionate look. He didn't answer my question and instead kept talking to himself. Shua, have you really lost your memory? Or is this just a temporary act? The two of us standing there like this was really quite awkward. At the same moment, Tuanzi, having come to her senses, tugged at my sleeve. Mother, seeing that the situation was taking a bad turn, the unfamiliar man grabbed me and said, "Tonight at the hour of high. I'll be waiting for you at the usual place." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished in a flash, leaving me utterly bewildered. Oh my God, could it be that, 5 years from now, not only am I married to my archrival Jiyu Xian and have 2 kids with him, but I've also given him a cuckold's hat? I think there must be some misunderstanding here. Although I've lost my memory, I firmly believe, and I guarantee with my character, that I am definitely not the kind of person who would have an affair with another man, unless that scoundrel Jiyu Xian deeply hurt me, and I must have done it just to get back at him. I took Tuanzi back to Guanju Palace. While Jiyu Xian hadn't returned yet, I searched every corner of Guanju Palace, including my dowry. I only found a jade pendant engraved with the character Yao. There was also a locked sandalwood box. Beyond that, I found no other information about that unfamiliar man. When I asked about the origin of the jade pendant and the locked box, the palace maids and eunuchs knew nothing. If I pressed further, they would kneel and tremble like quails. I don't know how I could be connected to someone from the Hidden Dragon Guard. The Hidden Dragon Guard has always been the dedicated protectors of the Emperor and Crown Prince throughout the generations. As for that locked sandalwood box, Qingyun said I brought it from the General's manor, and the key is held by the Emperor. It's not allowed to be opened under normal circumstances. At this point, I pieced together the whole story in my mind. It's highly likely that after marrying Jiyu Xian, he grew tired of the old and favored the new, revealing all his despicable behavior. Not only did he try to tie me down with a child, forcing me to abandon my dream of becoming a female general and resign myself to being a weary, resentful woman in the inner palace, but he also locked away all my valuable dowry, not giving me a single coin, trapping me firmly within the deep palace walls. That's why I've been feeling so gloomy. I took the chance to find a handsome young hidden dragon guard to get back at Jiyu Xian. I even thought about running away with this hidden dragon guard, but then I accidentally fell into the lotus pond, suddenly lost my memory, and it threw everything into chaos. In the evening, I sat on the chaise lounge with my eyes half closed. Jiyu Xian, having finished his official duties, came back and noticed something was off with my expression, so he cautiously asked, "Did you happen to meet someone you shouldn't have today?" "Oh dear, better pass the buck quickly." I immediately stood up and confronted him. "Jiyu the fox, did you send someone to secretly follow me?" Seeing my anger, Jiyu Xian softened his tone for once. "It's just a hidden guard. You've had incidents before, I'm just worried." Excuses, pure excuses. I reached out my hand. "Give me the key to the sandalwood box. What's inside belongs to me." He had just mentioned the sandalwood box when Jiyu Xian's expression suddenly changed. "Shushu, Tuanzi and Yuanzi are both here, don't scare them." He lowered his voice and then led me into the inner chamber. I thought he would explain once we were inside, but the moment I stepped through the door of the inner chamber, the man pinned me down on the couch. With a click, the palace maid outside very perceptively closed the door. Only a few dim palace lanterns were lit in the inner hall, and the surroundings were utterly silent. I could even hear my own pounding heartbeat. Ji Yuxian's large hand caressed my face. His eyes dark as he looked at me. He lowered his head and slowly leaned closer to my face, so close that I thought he was going to kiss me. But instead, he didn't kiss me, he bit my cheek. Shunshu. Don't ever think of using anything to make me leave you. The distance between us was so close that I could clearly see the madness churning in his eyes. I find this guy's state quite strange, someone who acts so arrogant yet is so fragile. I was about to say something harsh, but when I saw the look in his eyes, as if he were about to shatter, my tone inexplicably softened as I spoke. But you can't just use your status as the emperor to tie me down in the deep palace with a child. Not only preventing me from fulfilling my ambition of becoming a female general but also withholding the money in my chest, forcing me to become a resentful woman trapped in the inner court, worrying about everything. Ji Yuxian paused for a moment upon hearing this, then laughed. You really are an ungrateful one, Empress. What in the harem has ever caused you any worry? The palace maids and eunuchs handle the cooking and cleaning. You're carried in a sedan chair even when strolling in the imperial garden. The children are cared for by their governesses and taught by the grand tutor, and there are no other women in the harem to cause you trouble, and withholding your money isn't the key to the palace treasury just lying in your dressing case. All you do every day is admire the flowers, play with the birds, and feed the fish. How have you become a resentful woman trapped in the deep palace? As for becoming a female general, that's a demon you've created in your own heart. In the past 5 years, the sight of weapons has brought you pain. I don't want you to suffer, and that chest, if you wish to open it, go ahead, I'll have someone bring the key tomorrow. His voice was low and hoarse, sounding as if he was coaxing me. I lowered my head, not wanting him to see my burning red face. Oh, I'm sorry, it seems I misunderstood you. But who would have thought that Ji Yuxian had no intention of letting me off? He gently kissed my ear, his murmuring voice so hoarse it felt like he was tempting me. Shush you, please don't leave me again. Okay, I can give you anything you want. Please, stay by my side. These confessions instantly made me blush to the point of explosion. I really want to bury my head in the blankets. I truly can't imagine how Ji Yuxian, who 5 years ago wore a cold face every day, spoke with an arrogant attitude, and never missed a chance to shut me down, has evolved to the point where he can make me explode with excitement anytime, anywhere. The man moved closer to me, his voice suggestive. Are you shy? I am not, I mumbled with my head buried. Even your neck is flushed red. The man's voice was clearly laced with amusement. Hearing that, I instantly looked up in flustered anger, glaring at him. He laughed as he delivered his final conclusion. Even my shushu has moments of shyness, embarrassed. I clenched my fist, wanting to give him a couple of hits, but just as I raised my hand, a dart suddenly flew in and, with a whoosh, embedded itself in the pillar of the hall. Attached to the dart was a note. Ji Yuxian picked up the note. Although he tried to avoid my line of sight, I still caught a glimpse of the words clearly written in black and white on the paper. Shua, I've been waiting for you. Have you forgotten what he did to you? You are my wife. I stared fixedly at Ji Yuxian, hoping he would offer some explanation for this, but he remained silent. The sky grew darker, and his gloomy expression was hidden in the night, making it hard to see clearly. We stood in a stalemate for who knows how long, and just as I was about to ask, Ji Yuxian also spoke. Don't worry too much. I'll have someone find him. Tomorrow, I'll have someone deliver the key to the box to you. With that, he turned and left, leaving me no room to ask any questions. Oh dear. Everything is back to square one. 5 years later, life hasn't become any easier for me. Instead, it feels like every step is fraught with peril. I've made up my mind to investigate this matter myself. So far, Ji Yuxian has only said that the person was an assassin and hasn't revealed anything else. I thought he didn't take this matter seriously. It seemed as if he wasn't worried about that mysterious man at all. But in the following days, Ji Yuxian's behavior, much like a loyal guard dog, made me realize he wasn't as calm as he appeared on the surface. On the first day of hunting the assassin, Jiyu Xian used the excuse of protecting me properly to linger in the Guanju Palace, refusing to leave. He'd rather sleep on the chaise lounge for the night than go back. On the second day after catching the assassin, Jiyu Xian brought me my favorite weapons, the 5 phoenixes facing the sun spear and the purple star 7-star spear. On the third day after catching the assassin, Jiyu Xian took me to the training ground and told me he had organized a spear battalion for me, so I could come here to train soldiers whenever I felt bored. The 4th day, the 5th day, it was only then that I realized this arrogant Jiyu the Fox was actually trying to win me over. The Jiyu dynasty has allowed the kingdom of An to stand strong for over 100 years. With Jiyu Xian's ascension to the throne, the dynasty has not only become more stable but also more vibrant. 5 years ago, the neighboring kingdom of Hong was still eyeing our country with hostility, frequently sending troops to wage war. Now, however, Hong no longer poses any real threat to An. I had previously heard from Qingyun that the kingdom of Hong had sent an envoy to establish friendly relations. Now, the gifts that Jiyu Xian occasionally prepares for me are one of the few joys I have in the palace. Just as I was looking forward to what Jiyu Xian would bring me today, he arrived at my Guanju palace empty-handed. When I entered, I deliberately took a good look at him, thinking he might be hiding something behind his back to surprise me. But there was really nothing. At this point, I thought his fawning, golden retriever-like behavior had come to an end. Unexpectedly, after dinner that evening, he shamelessly squeezed his way onto my bed. It's already dark outside. Shouldn't the Empress keep me company and give me some sweetness too, Tilda? Before I could throw a punch at him, the 2 little ones on the bed caught their shameless father red-handed. Father is so grown up, yet is still afraid of the dark. How embarrassing. Yuan's soft, sweet voice chimed in, Tuanzi, as the older brother took the opportunity to add another jab at his father. Father, you're kind of acting cute and coquettish here. It was rare to see Jiyu Xian being teased by someone younger than him, his face turning red and then pale. I kindly tried to ease the tension for him. Your father has been afraid of the dark since he was a child. Back when he got lost in the temporary palace, as soon as it got dark, he would throw himself into my arms and cry, so don't make fun of him anymore. I watched the tall, 8-foot-tall man sitting somewhat awkwardly on the edge of the bed. I glanced at him while holding Yuanzi. All right. Jiyu Xian, you can come up, but you still have to sleep by the edge of the bed today. Unexpectedly, Jiyu Xian was even more shameless than I had imagined. He directly asked the palace maid outside the hall to take Tuanzi and Yuanzi to the side hall. I could hear Tuanzi and Yuanzi softly calling for their mother, but Jiyu Xian had already pinned me down on the bed. Jiyu Xian, what exactly are you trying to do? Do you want me to forget all those things that person wrote? Have you done something that hurt me? I've been investigating in the palace these past few days, but the scope is too large, and everything seems perfectly normal. I even sent letters to my family far away, asking what exactly happened, but so far, I haven't received any news at all. Moreover, I've been out of touch with my family for almost 5 years. My older brother was transferred to the borderlands 5 years ago as well. Coincidentally, that was the same year Jiyu Xian and I got married. It seems just as he said, I've developed a mental demon, which is why I get a headache whenever I try to recall the past. What exactly did you do? Did you demote the general's manor just to threaten me into marrying you? You're the one who knows how to threaten people. Jiyu Xian immediately retorted upon hearing my words. His reaction was intense, as if I were about to threaten him again. But if I truly threatened to leave, why wouldn't he let me go? This forceful attitude was nothing like the carefree Jiyu Xian I remembered. Jiyu Xian lowered his head, seemingly suppressing some emotion. I guessed he might be on the verge of revealing the truth, so I waited patiently. When he raised his head again, his face was as red as a fool's. Do you really want to know? I nodded. Jiyu Xian continued. Actually, it's because you loved me without realizing it. That's why, after refusing the Emperor's marriage arrangement back then, you were so depressed that you schemed to get me drunk. Hearing this, I was almost frightened out of my wits. After we got married and I ascended the throne, perhaps I became too preoccupied with my duties, which made you feel neglected. That's why you sought amusement with a little guard. This is my fault. And I won't let it happen again. But after all, we are husband and wife, and we even have 2 children now. You can't go looking for other men anymore." Hearing these words, my world fell into chaos. It felt as though countless threads were tangling in my mind, but in an instant, the question I had always wanted to ask but never dared to voice burst out of me uncontrollably. "Then do you like me or not? Shunshu, I love you." This time, it was my turn to blush all over my face. Even though I had adapted to life 5 years later for a while now, I still couldn't quite handle Jiyu Shen's straightforward approach. Soon, it would be the farewell banquet that Anghua was hosting for the envoys from Hongguo. Jiyu Shen initially refused to let me go, saying that my mind hadn't fully recovered yet and attending the banquet would be too exhausting. But with my coquettish pleading and repeated assurances, he still brought me along to attend. This banquet was held as usual at Yuanqing Palace. Holding Yuan's hand, I went to the banquet together. Looking up to see the double-eaved hip and gable roof covered with yellow glazed tiles, by the time I arrived at the banquet, it was already about to begin. No matter how beautiful the clear and melodious music of strings and bamboo instruments was, after listening to it for so many years, I had grown tired of it. I couldn't help but yawn. Seeing that I was sleepy, Jiyu Shen held my hand under the table and asked if I wanted to take the child back to Guanju Palace to rest. Looking at this boring banquet, I was just about to agree. Suddenly, someone from the banquet stood up and proposed a toast to me. "Long live the Empress. Surely, Your Majesty won't refuse this toast from me, the prince." I took a closer look and, oh my, those sharp eyes! It was none other than the hidden dragon guard who had shielded me from the weapon that day. How did he suddenly become the prince of the kingdom of Hong today? I never expected that the lover I had chosen would turn out to be the prince of an enemy nation. I could guess that the dragon guard who didn't wait for me wouldn't give up easily. But I never expected that a secret lover would dare to confront me directly. He was still dressed in that inconspicuous manner, wearing a black python robe with wide sleeves, his face half covered by a silver mask. Even with only half his face visible, his striking handsomeness was undeniable. After all, he is a prince. And his imposing presence is not lacking. The foundation of his face is quite good. But the moment I recall Jiyu Shen saying he is my secret lover, I can no longer entertain any improper thoughts about him. "Your Majesty the Empress, is it that you don't wish to accept me? Or is someone forcing you to reject me?" Before I could respond, the man glared directly at Jiyu Shen beside me. Seeing the sparks flying between their gazes, as if a battle was about to ignite, I decided to make a quick escape. "I haven't been feeling well lately, so I won't be drinking this glass of wine. I hope everyone enjoys themselves, but I'm really not feeling well and will head back now." With that, I left with Yuanzi. I dismissed the palace attendants who were following me and had my aunt take Yuanzi back to Guanju Palace first. Then, I wandered aimlessly through the imperial garden alone. I thought about the fervent gaze the Prince of Hong had directed at me and the ambiguous words written on that piece of paper. Could I really have betrayed Jiyu Shen? Just as I was feeling troubled, a hand suddenly pulled me into an embrace. I looked up and saw that it was the Prince of Hong. Frightened, I quickly pushed him away and saw the shock in his eyes. It seemed he had held me like this many times before. He was about to lay his hands on me again, so I quickly dodged and stepped further away from him. "Your Highness, it is never right to break up someone else's family. I am the rightful queen of this nation. And Jiyu Shen is my legitimate husband. Whatever happened between us before no longer matters. My maids will be back soon, so you should leave now." Mentioning the term husband made me feel inexplicably shy, but the person before me sarcastically repeated, "Jiyu Shen, your husband, and I am the Prince of Hong Kingdom. You used to call me Yuan Yaro, sure. You used to hate it the most when people called you Empress. What's wrong with you? Did that despicable scoundrel Jiyu Shen give you some kind of love potion?" I could only go along with it and casually said, "I've lost my memory." Song Yuan Yao, in a fit of anger, removed his mask, revealing his true face, handsome and refined, though a scar on the left side of his face lent his features a touch of madness. Only then did Song Yuanyaro understand. "Sure, Jiyu Shen is the one who has caused you so much pain. Your parents' departure and your elder brother's exile to the northern frontier, it was all Jiyu Xian's doing. If you stay here, you may never see your family again. How could that be? Uncle Jiyu and the others have never done anything unjust to my family, I retorted directly. That's because when the kingdom of Hong invaded, the royal family had to rely on your Shen family's influence to quell the war. Otherwise, how do you explain the complete lack of news from your parents all these years? The sheer amount of information in these words was a bit overwhelming, and though I didn't fully understand, it still struck a chord in me. It's true that I haven't seen my parents for 5 years, not even a single letter. I have nothing more to say, but Song Yuan Yao continues to escalate. Similarly, Jiyu Xian doesn't like you at all. Back when the old emperor arranged a marriage between you two, and you both refused, the war between our two nations intensified. Even you followed your father onto the battlefield, clad in silver armor and riding a chestnut horse. I spotted you at first glance on the battlefield. I look at this somewhat unfamiliar face before me and ask, have I met you before? Of course you have. We fought all night long at Tianxian Gorge. You said that if it weren't for the divide of our nations, we would have become the best of friends. After I returned, I requested a decree from my father, as long as you married me, the two nations could cease hostilities and form a lasting alliance through marriage. My father agreed, and after sending word to your old emperor, he also agreed. I came to the kingdom of An to seek your hand in marriage. During that time, you took me to see the lantern festivals of the Central Plains and even brought me to the outskirts of the capital to ride horses and hunt. You said you liked me and were willing to become my wife. Hearing this, I felt that these memories did exist in my mind. They seemed to be faintly struggling to surface. Then, why am I now Jiyu Xian's wife? That's because Jiyu Xian couldn't bear to let you go. He drugged you, and then you ended up having a child together. At the time, you were injured on the battlefield and your body was too weak to undergo an abortion. In the end, you had no choice but to marry him because of the pregnancy. In the end, he even tried to silence me. This scar on my face is from that time, and you told me yourself that Jiyu Xian would rather become a monk than be with you. Instantly, my head felt like it was about to explode. Before Song Yuanyao said the last sentence, I was still frantically making excuses for Jiyu Xian in my heart, because what he described was simply not the Jiyu Xian I had come to know during this time. But after he finished the last sentence, my mind suddenly went blank. That Shen Shushu who only knows how to wield swords and spears, who would like her, marry her. I'd rather become a monk. Jiyu Xian and I grew up together as childhood friends, and this has always been our way of interacting. For every word he taunts me with, I have to retort with 10. When we first began to understand love, we probably weren't each other's ideal type, but despite not liking each other, we still got married and even had 2 children. I broke out in a cold sweat for no reason. Suddenly realizing that what Song Yuanyao said might be true, Jiyu Xian really is the kind of person who would do anything out of sheer unwillingness to accept defeat. I froze in place, unable to move. Song Yuanyao walked over and hugged me. Sure, it's alright, I will always be by your side. Jiyu Xian, who had arrived belatedly, had just arrived and saw me and Song Yuanyao embracing each other. Prince Yao, you have entered my imperial garden and are holding my wife. I am very curious, is this how your country conducts itself as a guest? Jiyu Xian's voice was as cold as shards of ice. Are you threatening me? Song Yuanyao retorted defiantly. He was left speechless by Jiyu Xian's remark, his face turning ashen. I'm afraid that if your Hong Kingdom starts another war, you'll be utterly defeated. After a tense standoff, Song Yuanyao was the first to back down. He whispered in my ear, if you want to leave this place, I'll fight him to the end to take you away. With that, he turned and left. For a moment, only Jiyu Xian and I remained in the imperial garden. We stood in silence, staring at each other, and after what felt like an eternity, I made to walk past him. He nervously grabbed my arm. Where are you going? The sheer impact of this revelation made my already sluggish mind even more sluggish. Go check on the children, I said calmly. Jiyu Xian still didn't let go. He spoke with difficulty, his voice somewhat hoarse, as if he was struggling to hold something back. If you were really Shen Shushu from 5 years ago, you would believe me, not listen to his nonsense. Ji Yuxian didn't know that every time he got nervous, his right hand would tremble uncontrollably. He was right, I am Shen Shushu from 5 years ago, so my mind is finding 100, 1,000, 10,000 excuses for him. I don't know what he was thinking, but I held Tuanzi all night without sleeping, and I thought about many things. I know I can't just take Song Yuanyao's word for it, I want to investigate the truth myself. In the palace, everything I hear is only what Ji Yuxian wants me to hear. At first, Ji Yuxian wanted to talk to me, but when he saw that I had shut the palace doors and refused to see him, he didn't say anything more. Later, perhaps he gave up on our relationship and stopped coming to see me altogether, so I secretly left the palace through the dog hole that the big yellow dog had left behind when I was a child. I only said goodbye to Tuanzi and Yuanzi. I rode my horse back to the general's manor first. I climbed over the wall to get into the old mansion, which was no longer inhabited, but it was clear that someone still came to clean it regularly every month. I opened the door to my bedroom and began searching for my diary. Soon after, I found my diary from 5 years ago hidden in a secret compartment under my bed. The diary already showed signs of age, and I opened it to begin reading. The obsession of my youth had, from this moment, become a reality. It turned out that 5 years ago, I had briefly served as a female general, and I truly had someone I loved. That person was none other than Song Yuanyao, whom I had met on the battlefield, first as adversaries, then as something more. After the imperial marriage proposal was rejected, everyone said Ji Yuxian already had someone in his heart and that he looked down on a woman like me, who only knew how to wield swords and spears. So after I refused the marriage proposal, I resolutely followed my father to the battlefield, where I shone brilliantly in the military camp and even caught the affection of the enemy prince. However, Ji Yuxian, unwilling to accept it, schemed to spend a wild night with me, and I ended up pregnant. This caused the relationship between Ji Yuxian and me to deteriorate drastically, turning from our previous bickering into genuine mutual torment. Those closely involved cannot see as clearly as those standing by. It feels as though I've experienced the events in the diary without reliving the specific details of the past. This has left me with an unusual sense of calm now. I don't entirely agree with some of the things I said back then. Because Ji Yuxian was right, 5 years ago, Ji Yuxian and Shen Shushu were always each other's strongest support. So I need to start investigating from the point where Ji Yuxian set me up. I went to find Lin Luo, who was a close friend of both Ji Yuxian and me back then, with my questions. In my diary, I mentioned that during a palace banquet, I overheard a conversation between Lin Luo and Ji Yuxian. If you like her, why don't you confess? She's too timid. I'm afraid she'll get scared off. Need some help, brother? I've got some good stuff here. Get lost. Later, that wild night with Ji Yuxian made me certain that he couldn't bear to let me go. When Lin Luo saw me, he didn't even know where to put his hands. Your Majesty, the Empress. I ignored the address and asked him to sit down first. I only have one question this time. That night with Ji Yuxian, did you really give him some special medicine back then? Lin Luo was taken aback by my words and said anxiously, Damn, Shen Shushu, since you came to ask me, how can you not trust me? I really didn't give that thing to brother Ji Yu. You grew up with brother Ji Yu since childhood, don't you know what kind of person he is? After hearing what he said, my heart, which had just settled, was suddenly lifted again. The one who drugged you was that bastard from the neighboring Hong Kingdom. At that time, you were under the influence of the drug, and it was brother Ji Yu who saved you by offering himself. Shen Shushu, you can't just abandon him after taking advantage. Alright, you can shut up now. I blushed and told him to stop talking immediately. I remember back then, wasn't there a timid girl he liked? Do you have any clues? Since childhood, brother Ji Yu has always been around you, bickering with you all day long. No other young lady ever received special treatment from him. Oh, right. I remember brother Ji Yu wrote quite a few letters back then, but it seems none of them were ever sent. They were all kept hidden away. To be honest, all of us close friends thought for sure that brother Ji Yu liked you, but you didn't believe it. Not only did you refuse the arranged marriage, but you also went off to the battlefield, and afterward, you became completely infatuated with that prince from the Rainbow Kingdom. Seeing that the final mystery was about to be solved, I had no interest in listening to his nonsense. After exchanging a few more words, I left directly. I crawled back through the dog hole. I ran all the way back to Guanju Palace and used the key Jiyu Xian had given me to open that sandalwood box. My hands were trembling as I opened it. I was afraid that what was inside would be exactly what I had imagined, that would make these 5 years of mutual torment nothing but a joke. But I was even more afraid that it wouldn't be. When I opened the box, I saw it was filled with hundreds of thick letters. Shen Shishu, are you an idiot? Can't you even tell that I like her? Don't they say I'm the smartest and most handsome man in the world? Why doesn't she like me? Why doesn't she like me? Why doesn't she like me? I'm really fed up. Why did that fool refuse the marriage arranged by my father? I was the one who begged him for it. I'm so angry. I'm so mad I'm going to become a monk. Shen Shishu. And then you won't have a husband anymore. Shen Shishu actually went to the battlefield just to avoid me. The first day without her, I miss her. The second day without Shen Shishu, I miss her. Before Shen Shishu even returned to the capital, the letter of peace and marriage proposal from the enemy emperor arrived. That old man's son actually wanted to marry Shen Shishu. In his dreams, don't even think about it, Shen Shishu has returned to the capital. She seems to have lost a lot of weight, and I heard she was injured. I sneaked a peek at her. But she was staring at that ugly prince from the Rainbow Kingdom the whole time and didn't even notice me. So mad, Shen Shishu, I want to marry you. You can only be my wife. I was afraid of scaring you away, so I didn't tell you earlier. You fool, Shen Shishu, my midnight dreams are all of you. I planned to have a good rest tonight and go explain everything to Jiyu Xian the next day. Once everything was out in the open, we could start over. The imagination was beautiful, but reality was cruel. When I opened my eyes in the Guanju Palace, I found myself in the side hall of the Eastern Palace. Oh no, before I could even explain, Jiyu Xian had already turned dark. The side hall was pitch black, with only a few scattered sparks of light. This was a place we wouldn't even come to play hide and seek as children. Yet Jiyu Xian had locked me in here. Jiyu Xian stood not far from me. As soon as I lifted my hand after waking up, I heard the clinking of iron chains. Jiyu Xian walked toward me. Holding the chain, he had reverted to the way he was when I first met him, wild and unpredictable like the little wolf I once raised, ready to pounce at the slightest provocation. His bright yellow dragon robe was slightly disheveled, perhaps unchanged for days. There were faint dark circles under his eyes. The man sat beside me, raising his hand to gently stroke my cheek. Shishu, you have always been mine, but why are there always those who don't know their place? Trying to take you away from me. I simply watched him quietly. He suddenly leaned in and kissed my lips, biting me before pulling away. Of course I wouldn't let him go. In just a moment, I flipped over and pinned him beneath me. Jiyu Xian, do you want to be with me forever? Hearing my words, his eyes trembled, and one hand instinctively wrapped around my waist. I shook the chain in my hand, and the next moment, I slipped it around his wrist. In an instant, I pressed against him, our bodies so close that our breaths intertwined. Don't you want to be with me like this? As my voice, soft and seductive, filled the air, Jiyu Xian's breathing grew increasingly rapid. I gently hooked my finger around his belt. Let go of me. I won't leave again. I promise you. I'll stay with you forever. I am your wife. At that moment, the man beneath her felt his heart racing uncontrollably. But soon, Song Yangchu realized a new problem. Wait, you, how did you become like this? I didn't let go of my arms around his neck and asked. I've finished reading all the letters in the box. Oh, I'm a timid fool. Then what are you? A bold idiot. Someone once said that only a flattering fool like Xiao Bai would like me. Wu tilde. Upon hearing this, Jiyu Xian pinched his throat and imitated Xiao Bai's cries twice. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and asked the final question. You've only ever liked me, right, Jiyu the fox? It's always only been you, foolish Shishu. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Father says I burned my brain when I was a child, so there are many things I don't understand, but I do know that I married the best husband. He always says I'm foolish, but he loves to pinch my cheeks and tell me I'm adorably silly. Later, he was conscripted to go to war, promising to return by autumn. But I waited and waited, until all the leaves had fallen, only to have my brother-in-law bring back a cold, lifeless wooden plaque. Every day, I would go to the grave on the back hill to keep him company, bringing freshly picked wild fruits, until one day, I accidentally overheard under the window, "There are plenty of ways to repay a favor. Why must I marry a fool? She clings to me all day, and I've long grown tired of it. This is so much better now. I take care of my sister-in-law on behalf of my elder brother, and you help look after that fool. It's a win-win situation." Only then did I realize that he had already returned long ago. If you were truly tired of me, you could have just said so. Why did you have to fake your death to deceive me? The next day, Father came again to ask if I wanted to remarry. I nodded gently, pulled off the white velvet flower I had worn for a year, and tossed it into the stove. I was washing the freshly picked wild fruits by the stream, the bright red fruits rolling around in the bamboo basket. "Silly Xiaotang, your husband has been gone for over a year now. Why are you still wearing that white flower?" Aunt Zhong paused her pounding with the wooden club and glanced at me sideways. She can't even remember the dates, her brain is fried. Granny Li passed by with her vegetable basket, sneering, "A fool who brings misfortune to her husband." With that, the two of them burst into laughter. I angrily grabbed a wild fruit and threw it at her. I know the dates. After Chengyi left, I would go sit by the grave on the back hill every day. Each time I went, I would place a foxtail grass there. Of course I knew the date. The bamboo basket suddenly tilted, and the wild fruits all tumbled gulu-gulu into the stream. I hurriedly reached to scoop them up, my sleeves completely soaked, and the cold made me shiver. Their laughter grew even louder. Here, Sister Axiang, the tofu seller, crouched down and helped me retrieve the wild fruits that had drifted away one by one. "Don't mind them." Her eyes were red, either from crying earlier or on the verge of tears again. It seems since her husband left, her eyes have always been this red. I smiled at Sister Axiang, and she sighed. "Silly girl, you've become a widow at such a young age. How can you still manage to smile?" I tilted my head and thought for a moment. Widow. I think I heard someone mention it on the day Chengyi was buried too. They said that, like Sister Axiang, I had become a widow and would never see my husband again. I was deeply saddened by this for a long time. But later I realized that I could go to the back hill every day to chat with Chengyi for a while, telling him all the interesting things that happened in the village one by one. When he was still here, he always complained that I talked too much. But now he can quietly listen to everything I have to say. This is actually quite nice. "Xiaotang, you're back." When I got home, my mother-in-law was airing out the bedding in the yard. Seeing me come in, she smiled and waved. "Your eldest brother brought some candied dates from the county town and saved half a pack for you." My eyes lit up. Honey dates. Chengyi used to buy them for me often. My mother-in-law knew I loved them and always saved the biggest and sweetest ones for me. "Eat slowly. Don't choke," my mother-in-law said with a smile. "Tomorrow, let's go to the market and pick out some new fabric for you to make clothes. You've been wearing this plain dress for over a year now." She suddenly stopped speaking, as if remembering something, her eyes slightly reddening before she turned and went inside. I happily finished half a pack of candied dates in the yard and was about to go inside to thank my elder brother-in-law when I suddenly heard hushed voices coming from the room. "Yeah, Xiaotang is, after all, your lawfully wedded wife." "Yeah, why does mother-in-law call the elder brother Yia? But the elder brother's name is clearly Cheng Yong." I tiptoed closer to the window. "Mother, keep your voice down," said the elder brother Cheng Yong. "Don't let that little fool hear." "Little fool." Chengyi used to love calling me that. My fingertips suddenly stung. I had accidentally pressed it against a splinter on the bamboo curtain. "It's been over a year. And she still goes to your elder brother's grave every day. This can't go on like this." My mother-in-law whispered, "If she wants to go, let her go. Why do you care?" "But, if it weren't for her saving you back then, there are plenty of ways to repay a favor. Why should I have to marry a fool?" The voice suddenly rose, then dropped sharply. "She's been clinging to me all day long. I've long been annoyed by it. I've always envied my elder brother for being able to marry such a virtuous wife as Wanna. Now it's perfect, I'll take care of sister-in-law for my brother, and you can look after that fool. It's a win-win situation. My mother-in-law sighed. If Xiaotang ever finds out, I'm afraid she'll be heartbroken again. She's a fool. How would she ever find out? Cheng Yi sneered. She still greets me with a smile and calls me big brother every time we meet. The sweetness of the candid date suddenly rose in my throat, so cloying that I felt the urge to cough. I crouched down, hugging my knees, watching the ants coming and going in the brick crevices, my eyes feeling a bit sore. If you're annoyed, you can just tell me directly. Why do you have to pretend to be dead, Xiaotang? What are you doing crouching here? My mother-in-law's voice came from above, startling me. I was watching the ants move. I quickly wiped my eyes with my sleeve. They're so clever, they know it's going to rain. I looked up and saw Cheng Yi standing at the door, his face frighteningly pale. He rushed over in a few quick steps, grabbing my arm tightly. What did you hear? His grip hurt, but I didn't dare cry out. Nothing. I was just watching the little ants. Cheng Yi suddenly let go, his eyes red. My mother-in-law sighed. Xiaotang, go wash your hands and eat. I ate too many candid dates. I lowered my head and ran into the room. I want to lie down for a while. After closing the door, I heard my mother-in-law say outside, you scared her. Cheng Yi's voice was muffled. Mother, I didn't listen anymore, climbed onto the bed and covered my head with the blanket, thinking, I'm not stupid. I know he was afraid I'd hear those words. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't help feeling wronged. After all, it was him who wanted me to be his wife back then. When we were kids, our families lived close by. And he always loved taking me out to play. That winter was especially cold, and the pond had frozen over with a thick layer of ice. He was being playful and stepped onto the ice. But suddenly, he fell through. Without a second thought, I plunged into the icy hole to pull him out. I managed to save him. But I ended up shivering all over from the cold. As soon as I got back, I came down with a high fever. For 3 whole days and nights, my forehead was burning hot. After the fever broke, my mind started to feel a bit slow, and my memory worsened. None of the children in the village wanted to play with me, only Cheng Yi didn't mind me. He would fiercely chase away the kids who bullied me and secretly slip me candies to eat. One time, his mother held my hand and shed tears. It was to save Ye that you ended up like this. When you grow up, let Ye marry you and take good care of you for the rest of your life. I blinked and asked Cheng Yi, if I become your wife, can I play with you every day? He nodded solemnly. Yes, and I can buy you candy every day too. So I happily replied, then when I grow up, I'll be your bride. On my coming-of-age ceremony, I truly put on the red wedding dress and married him. He loved to call me little fool, but he always remembered to bring me candied fruits from the county town. In winter, afraid that I would be cold, he would warm up the bed for me first, until later, when his eldest brother married Sister Wanna. Sister Wanna was beautiful, spoke softly and gently, and the flowers she embroidered could attract butterflies. Cheng Yi often started comparing me to her. Look how virtuous sister-in-law is, unlike you, who can't even embroider a handkerchief properly. Sister-in-law never says much, so why are you chattering all day long? I secretly tried learning embroidery, pricking my fingers until they were covered in blood spots, but the patterns I stitched still came out crooked. Then I tried staying silent all day, but he ended up teasing me instead. Little fool, you're more adorable when you talk more. So I always thought he only complained with his words, but in his heart, he still cherished me. But hearing these words today, I finally understand that he has always liked a woman like Sister Wanna. He faked his death just so he could be with Sister Wanna openly, without having to face a little fool like me anymore. All those foolish things I said at the graveside every day this past year, I was actually saying them to my brother-in-law. He always used to laugh at me, and now, down in the underworld, he must be laughing even harder. The more I thought about it, the more wronged I felt, and the more I thought, the more miserable I became. So I started crying again, crying and crying. I drifted off into a hazy sleep. The next day, my father came to see me. Seeing my eyes swollen like walnuts, he asked me again, "My girl, do you want to remarry?" Every time he asked before, I would shake my head and say, if I leave, no one will keep Cheng Yi company, he'll be lonely. But this time, I rubbed my sore eyes. looked up at him, and asked, "Will he think I'm foolish?" Father's eyes reddened instantly. His rough hand gently stroked my head as he said, "No, he'll adore you too much to even think that." I pulled off the white velvet flower I had worn for a year, tossed it into the stove, and nodded, "All right. Then I'll marry him." After Father left, I felt a hollow emptiness in my heart and decided to go to the courtyard for some fresh air. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Cheng Yi and Sister Wanna playing chess under the phoenix tree. Cheng Yi was frowning, looking completely absorbed in the game. I stood at the doorway, not daring to approach. Cheng Yi hated being disturbed the most when playing chess. In the past, when I brought him tea and accidentally bumped the board, he would scold me harshly, saying, "Little fool, don't cause trouble, checkmate." Sister Wanna smiled as she placed her piece. Cheng Yi shook his head and laughed. "Wanna is still the best." Neither of them noticed me. I looked down at the tips of my shoes, thinking to myself, Sister Wanna is truly amazing. She can play chess and embroider flowers. No wonder Cheng Yi enjoys spending time with her. I can't even recognize all the chess pieces. Xiao Tang, my mother-in-law's voice came from behind me. "Why are you standing here in a daze?" Before I could answer, my mother-in-law had already taken my hand and was leading me toward the tree. Come, I've just washed some fruit." Cheng Yi looked up and saw me, the smile at the corner of his lips fading almost instantly. Wanna, however, was warm and friendly. "Xiao Tang, you're here. Would you like to learn how to play chess?" She could never learn something like this. Cheng Yi chuckled, turning away to gather the chess pieces. My heart sank, and I tugged at my mother-in-law's sleeve, whispering softly, "Mother, my father was just here. He said he's found a family for me. I might have to remarry." With a clatter, the chess piece in Cheng Yi's hand fell onto the board and rolled onto the floor. "What?" The mother-in-law was shocked, dropping the fruits in her hand all over the floor. "When did this happen? Which family is it?" I shook my head. My father didn't explain clearly. Cheng Yi suddenly sneered. "You're getting married without even knowing who the other party is. Aren't you afraid of being sold off and still helping them count the money?" My face flushed bright red. "My father said it's a good family. He wouldn't harm me." My mother-in-law quickly tried to smooth things over. "Yonga means well. With you being such a fool, what decent family would ever want you?" Cheng Yi laughed again. "Stop dreaming. My father said they don't mind that I'm foolish." I mumbled resentfully. "Only a fool would believe that, Yonga." My mother-in-law scolded, then took my hand and said gently, "Xiao Tang, are you unhappy here? I know it's not easy for you to be a widow, with Yi gone. I'll treat you twice as well." I stole a glance at Cheng Yi. He was staring intently at the chessboard, his knuckles turning white, yet he still maintained an indifferent expression. "It's not that. Mother treats me very well." I twisted the corner of my clothes. "It's just, my father said that a girl should have a place to belong." Cheng Yi suddenly stood up, scattering the chess pieces all over the floor. "If she wants to leave, let her go. Once she hits a wall out there, she'll realize that a fool like her is unwelcome everywhere." Sister Wanna gently tugged at his sleeve, but he shook her off and walked away without looking back. She glanced at me, then at mother-in-law, sighed softly, and hurried after him. My mother-in-law held me close, tears streaming down her face. "Silly child. Your brother may have spoken harshly, but he only said it out of concern for you. Now that you're leaving, I lowered my head, twisting the corner of my clothes in silence, watching as a light rain suddenly began to fall from the sky. "Mother, look, it's really raining." The ants are truly clever. They know to hide early when it rains, unlike me, who didn't realize Cheng Yi thought I was foolish and still went to see him every day. The drizzle moistened my eyelashes, and I blinked. Once I'm gone, Cheng Yi won't have to pretend to be the elder brother-in-law every day. He should be quite happy, right? 3 days later, Father came to take me home, and I hurried back to my room to pack my things. He said the new family had everything, so I didn't need to bring too much, but I couldn't bear to leave things behind. I had to look over each and every one of them. "This one I'll take, this one I won't," I muttered to myself as I folded the clothes. When suddenly I felt something hard at the bottom of the chest. It was the small wooden rabbit Cheng Yi had given me, though one of its ears was somehow missing a corner. I held the little rabbit in my hands and stared blankly for a while. I remember it was in the first year of our marriage when Chengyi returned from the county town and mysteriously pulled this out from his chest. You little fool, does it look like you? He laughed and poked the rabbit's three-lip mouth at the time. I was so happy that I even slept with it at night. But later, for some reason, it ended up tucked away at the bottom of a box. Xiaotang, come quickly and see the wedding dress. Father called out in the courtyard. I hurriedly stuffed the little rabbit into my bundle and ran out to see. In the courtyard, two matrons were shaking out a bright red wedding dress. The color was so vibrant, just like the one I wore when I married Chengyi all those years ago. It's so beautiful. I reached out and touched the delicate embroidery on the sleeve. How was it finished so quickly? Father chuckled as he stroked his beard. We hired a master craftsman from the city to start working on it 2 months ago, just waiting for your approval. Does it look good? I casually draped the wedding dress over myself. Beautiful, beautiful, Father replied, his eyes crinkling into slits as he smiled. That Zhao boy is a lucky one. Clang. The courtyard gate was suddenly kicked open. Chengyi stood there, his chest heaving violently, his eyes fixed intently on the wedding dress I was wearing. Uncle Shen. His voice was hoarse. May I speak with Xiaotang alone for a moment? Father frowned and looked at me. I gave a slight nod. Back in the room, Chengyi followed me in and closed the door behind him. Are you really going to marry him? Yes, I nodded. I asked my father. It's the Zhao family from West Village. I know, he interrupted me. Zhao Huijin, 23 years old, teaches at the county school. With every word he spoke, his face grew a shade paler. You know everything. I widened my eyes in surprise. How do you know even more than I do? Is knowing all that enough? He suddenly grabbed my wrist. Does he hit people? Does he drink? Does he kick the blankets off at night? Do you know any of that? I was stunned by his questions and could only whisper. He doesn't mind that I'm foolish. Chengyi's hand suddenly let go. He stood up with his back to me, his shoulders slumping. Yeah, I don't mind you being foolish. His voice was as light as a sigh. Such good conditions. Father's coughing came from outside. He was urging us. I stood up, stuffing the last piece of clothing into the bundle. I'm leaving. When I reached the door, I turned back, pulled the small wooden rabbit out of the bundle. Here, I shoved the little rabbit into his hand and whispered, after I'm gone, you won't have to pretend to be dead anymore. Chengyi. Chengyi's face instantly turned pale, his fingers clutching the little rabbit tightly. His voice was a bit hoarse. You really heard. Father coughed a few more times outside. Without answering, I hurriedly stepped out the door. Chengyi suddenly looked up, as if just realizing what was happening, and made to chase after me, but stopped after taking only one step. Cheng Yong. Father turned back in confusion. What's wrong with you today? Chengyi opened his mouth, but not a single word came out. Seeing his flustered expression, I suddenly found it a bit amusing. Don't worry. Big brother can't bear to let me go. I smiled at Father and took his arm. Father, let's go home quickly. I miss Da Huang. I stole a glance at Chengyi, feeling extremely pleased with myself. But you didn't expect that one day I'd be the one to get him out of a tight spot. Chengyi's face was extremely grim. He remained silent the entire time, just clutching that little rabbit and standing in place until we left. When I got home and pushed open the courtyard gate, Da Huang came barking and pouncing over, nearly knocking me flat on my backside. Da Huang. I crouched down and rubbed its head. Did you miss me? Its wet nose kept nuzzling into my palm, and its tail wagged like a rattledrum. I giggled and dodged its slobber, but it kept chasing after me, licking my fingers while whimpering as if to say, I missed you so much. All right, I said, hugging its furry head. I missed you too, just as we were playing around. The sound of gongs and drums suddenly came from outside the courtyard gate. Da Huang immediately pricked up its ears and darted out in a flash. I chased after them to the doorway and saw a lively procession heading straight for my house. The steward at the front shouted at the top of his lungs, "The Zhao family has come to present the betrothal gifts." I ran back into the courtyard and asked my father in confusion, aren't they supposed to wait for the chosen date to present the betrothal gifts? Why are they here now? Father patted Da Huang's head and laughed heartily. That Zhao boy couldn't wait any longer. He insisted on coming early to present a small betrothal gift as a token of his sincerity. As they were speaking, those people had already reached the courtyard gate. At a glance, I spotted a refined and scholarly-looking young man in the crowd. It had to be Zhao Huijin, no doubt about it. He was wearing a brand new blue gown today, looking quite sharp. He bowed respectfully and said, "Uncle Shen, Miss Shen." The sun shone upon him, making his entire being seem to glow. I stared at him for a long time, feeling as though I had seen him somewhere before. It wasn't until he had someone bring in a small bamboo cage, inside of which 2 snow-white rabbits were twitching their little noses. "Do you remember, miss?" he asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "We've met before." I suddenly remembered. Once, I found a rabbit at the foot of the mountain. Its leg was caught in a trap, bleeding heavily and trembling in pain. I carefully picked it up and brought it home. As soon as Cheng Yi saw it, he frowned and said, "It's filthy. Throw it out quickly." "No." I shielded the rabbit in my arms. "It's so pitiful. Can we keep it, please? You can't even take care of yourself. Why bother with these animals?" He snatched the rabbit away and was about to throw it out by its ears. I cried and grabbed it back. The rabbit, terrified, kicked its legs frantically in my arms, smearing blood all over me. Cheng Yi grew even angrier. "Look at you, making such a mess over an animal. You're really..." That night, I hid in the woodshed bandaging the rabbit, clumsily wrapping the gauze in a tangled mess. The rabbit trembled in pain, and I started crying along with it. Cheng Yi suddenly pushed the door open, his face cold. "I told you you're clumsy, and you still won't admit it. You can't even bandage a rabbit properly." He reached out to grab it again, but I quickly hugged the rabbit and ran outside, bumping right into someone under the locust tree at the village entrance. "Be careful." The person steadied me. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," I sobbed. "It's just that the little bunny is dying." He took out a handkerchief, hesitated for a moment, then handed it to me. "Wipe your face." I took the handkerchief, not only wiping away my tears but also blowing my nose loudly. "They all say I'm foolish," I said with grievance. "They say I can't even take care of myself, let alone save it. How could that be?" His eyes sparkled under the moonlight. "Someone who cares so much for little animals is the kindest of all." I looked up at him. Really? This was the first time someone had called me kind. Accustomed to hearing fool and idiot, these 2 words felt as sweet as honey, warming her heart. He nodded gently, his eyes crinkling into a smile. "Besides, I don't think you're foolish at all. How could someone foolish know to save a little animal?" The night breeze rustled through the locust tree, its leaves whispering softly. He looked at me seriously and said, "Remember, kindness is far more precious than cleverness." Later, he helped me rewrap the rabbit's wound. His hands were incredibly steady, and his movements were gentle. As he bandaged the wound, he taught me, "Wrap the gauze like this so it won't be too tight on it." Before leaving, he slipped a piece of sesame candy into my palm. "Have something sweet, it'll make you feel better." Remember now, Zhao Huijin took a piece of sesame candy from his sleeve, just like the one from back then. "Here, have something sweet, it'll make you feel better." My face flushed with warmth as I lowered my head and took the candy. My fingers accidentally brushed against his palm, and it felt warm. "Thank you, Teacher Zhao," I murmured softly, quickly popping the candy into my mouth. The sweet flavor melted on my tongue. "Call me Huijin," he said with a smile. I nodded and mumbled, "Huijin." The 2 little white rabbits were hopping around in the cage, and I couldn't help but squat down to play with them. Huijin also crouched beside me, teaching me how to feed them vegetable leaves. "Hold them like this," he demonstrated to me, "so they won't bite your fingers." After Father and Huijin spoke for a while, he got up to take his leave. I held the rabbit cage, reluctant to let go, and accompanied him all the way to the main gate. "I'll come back to see them in a few days," Huijin said with a smile. I nodded happily and went back to my room, placing the rabbit cage by the bed. I hummed a little tune as I fed the rabbits some vegetable leaves. Their little noses twitched, which was incredibly adorable. "Do you like it that much?" A cold voice suddenly came from behind me, startling me so much that my hand trembled and the vegetable leaves fell to the ground. Cheng Yi had somehow caught up and was now standing at the doorway, his face frighteningly dark. "Oh, of course I like it. I instinctively hugged the rabbit cage tighter. Huai-Jin gave it to me, Huai-Jin. His voice suddenly rose sharply. You call him so intimately. He glanced back at the red silk boxes piled in the courtyard, then strode over and grabbed my wrist. Are you really going to marry him? Of course. I nodded vigorously. I've already accepted the betrothal gifts. Look at this little rabbit. Isn't it, Ada? You're not allowed to marry him. He suddenly cut me off, his eyes reddening. I was startled by his outburst. Why not? He's not right for you. But father said it's suitable. Are you the one getting married, or is your father? He suddenly shouted, startling the little rabbit into scurrying around in its cage. Looking at him like this, I suddenly felt wronged. Weren't you quite happy with Sister Wanna? Why do you care who I marry? Cheng Yi's breathing became rapid and heavy, his chest heaving violently. In any case, you are not allowed to marry. I insist on marrying. I grew stubborn too. Holding the rabbit cage up in front of him, I've already accepted his little rabbit. As soon as I finished speaking, Cheng Yi suddenly snatched the rabbit cage and flung it to the ground. No, I screamed and lunged forward, but I was a step too late. The cage fell to the ground and cracked open, sending the two rabbits scurrying in panic. My rabbits, I cried, scrambling to catch them, my knees aching from hitting the floor. Cheng Yi seemed stunned by his own actions, standing frozen in place. I crawled over and gathered the trembling little rabbits into my arms, tears falling one after another. What are you doing? They're so small. What's wrong, Xiaotang? Father rushed in with a broom in hand, his face instantly changing at the sight. Cheng Yong, what are you doing? Cheng Yi's lips moved, but he said nothing. Turning and running out the door. Stop! Father shouted sternly, but Cheng Yi had already run out of sight. Father stepped forward to help me up. Xiaotang, did Cheng Yong bully you? Dad, he's not Cheng Yong, I sobbed, wiping my tears. He's Cheng Yi. He never died. Father's body suddenly stiffened, and the broom in his hand clattered to the ground. His face turned from red to pale, then from pale to ashen, and finally became as dark as the bottom of a pot. Fine. Father stomped his feet in anger, his beard bristling. That wretched scoundrel, playing tricks and bullying my daughter. I'll break his legs. I clung desperately to Father's sleeve, my tears falling even harder. Forget it, Dad, let him go. My voice grew softer and softer. He broke my little rabbit. I never want to see him again. A few days later, as I was squatting in the yard stroking the little rabbits, Huai-Jin indeed came to see them. He was holding a lovely bamboo cage with a small bell hanging from it that jingled whenever the wind blew. This cage is big and sturdy, he said, squatting down. There are several layers of cotton cloth laid at the bottom. I reached out and touched it. It really was much softer. Huai-Jin took out some green grass from his pocket again. This grass is sweet. Rabbits love it. The little rabbit caught the scent and hopped happily into the new cage. I clapped my hands joyfully. They really like it. During lunch, he quietly moved the spicy diced chicken farther away and carefully picked out all the fish bones for me. I bit my chopsticks and stared off into space. Even Cheng Yi couldn't remember that I don't eat spicy food. So how did he know? As we were leaving, he suddenly slipped an oil paper package into my hand. I heard you like these. I opened it and saw candied dates, each one coated in sugar glaze, sparkling in the sunlight. I leaned against the window, watching him walk away until his blue robe disappeared around the corner of the alley. That night, I had an especially sweet dream. In the dream, Huai-Jin kept stuffing candied fruits into my arms one packet after another. His eyes curved into crescents as he said, "Take your time eating." I was overjoyed. The next morning, I woke up to find that the oil paper package had been nibbled at a corner. It must have been that greedy Da Huang sneaking a bite in the middle of the night. Fuming, I thought about telling Huai-Jin, but then I suddenly realized I seemed to be already looking forward to seeing him again. Later on, Huai-Jin came even more frequently. Sometimes he would bring a branch of red plum blossoms, still sparkling with tiny ice crystals. Other times, he would pull a warm, roasted sweet potato from his cotton-padded coat, breaking it open to release a sweet, steaming aroma. Once, while the snow was falling heavily, he arrived with a head full of snowflakes. Still clutching a warm little hand warmer inside his coat, on such a cold day, Why not come back after the snow stops? I quickly pulled him inside, hastily brushing the snowflakes off his clothes. His nose was red from the cold, but he pulled a few pieces of dried grass from his sleeve. I promised to teach you how to weave a little rabbit yesterday. Look, I soaked the grass in warm water to soften it. It'll be easy to weave now. You silly Huai-Jin, I burst out laughing. It's not like I have to learn it today. As soon as I said it, I froze. It's actually my turn to call someone silly now, and here's this. He pulled out another warm, oil-stained paper packet from his sleeve and placed it in my hand. As soon as I opened it, wow, it was sugar-roasted chestnuts. They smelled so fragrant, and the shells had cracked open as if smiling. I was peeling chestnuts and got my hands all sticky with sugar juice, so Huai-Jin took out a handkerchief to wipe my hands. The handkerchief was fragrant, and it smelled just as good as he did. Huai-Jin, I said while eating chestnuts and counting on my fingers, you've already come 11 times this month. His eyes curved into two little crescents as he smiled. Our Xiaotang has such a good memory. Father poked his head out from the kitchen, still holding a spatula in his hand. Huai-Jin, coming here every day in this freezing cold, won't the children at the school start complaining? The tips of Huai-Jin's ears instantly turned red, and he stammered, I came during the lunch break. I can still make it to the afternoon class. As he spoke, he slipped another peeled chestnut into my hand warm, just like the palm of his hand. As the new year approached, Huai-Jin came to help father put up the spring festival couplets. On the bright red paper, his calligraphy looked like little figures dancing gracefully. Xiaotang, he suddenly called me, the paste brush in his hand trembling. After the new year, I want to ask Uncle Shen to pick a date. I stood on tiptoe to paste the character, Fortune, asking without turning my head, what date? When I turned around, I saw his face was redder than the spring festival couplets, and he stammered, it's the day to bring you home. Father was standing at the door at some point, clearing his throat. I think the 8th day of the 2nd month is a good day. Huai-Jin's eyes suddenly lit up as he pulled out a small cloth bundle from his chest. When he opened it, there were 2 small wooden figurines inside. The little girl with pigtails had smiling, crescent-shaped eyes, while the boy, who looked like a scholar, was still holding a book. I carved it for a long time. His hands trembled with nervousness. Do you think it looks like us? It looks exactly like us. I turned the little wooden figures over and over in my hands, then tucked them into my embrace like a treasure. Huai-Jin, you're the best. That day happened to be the Lantern Festival, and the festive lanterns on the street were dazzlingly bright. Huai-Jin bought me a chubby little rabbit lantern, and I hopped and skipped all the way home carrying it. The candle flame inside the lantern flickered, making the shadows on the ground dance along. As soon as I entered the door, I held up the lantern and brought it close to the rabbit hutch. Look. This is your little lantern brother Tilda. The little rabbits were so frightened they burrowed into the haystack, their noses twitching nervously. I quickly set the lantern on the ground and picked up one of the rabbits to comfort it. It's all my fault. I stroked the rabbit's soft fur. Suddenly remembering Huai-Jin had said that rabbits are easily frightened. I won't scare you again next time. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the courtyard gate was slammed and began to shake violently. Cheng Yi stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. His eyes were frighteningly red. The stubble on his chin was a mess. Nothing like the always clean and tidy Cheng Yi from before. He knelt before me with a loud thud, his knees hitting the ground hard. Xiaotang. His voice was terribly hoarse. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I regret it. I truly regret it. How could I have been so blinded back then? He knelt and shuffled forward, trying to grab my sleeve. Come home with me, please. I promise I'll never. I stepped back in fright, and the rabbit in my arms burrowed deeper into my embrace. I can't. I shook my head. Huai-Jin and I are getting married. The date is already set. His face instantly turned deathly pale. When? February 8th, I replied softly. Are you coming to the wedding banquet? Cheng Yi suddenly laughed, but the sound was more painful than crying. Wedding banquet, Xiaotang. Do you have to be so cruel? I stroked the trembling little rabbit in my arms and thought, he was the one who abandoned me first, so why is he now saying I'm cruel? Cheng Yi, father charged in, holding a broom. How dare you show your face here? the broom struck Cheng Yi's back heavily, and he grunted but refused to dodge. "Father, go ahead and hit me. I'll accept it even if you beat me to death. Who's your father?" Dad trembled with anger. "Striking down with the broom again, you pretended to be dead and bullied my daughter, and now you have the nerve to ask for forgiveness." Cheng Yi staggered from the blows but remained kneeling upright, hiding behind my father. I saw his eyes were red. "Xiao Tang." I tugged at my father's sleeve and shook it gently. "Dad, let him go." Father shoved Cheng Yi out and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. I thought that would be the end of it, but the next morning, when I pushed open the window, I saw Cheng Yi kneeling outside the courtyard gate. He was covered in snow, looking like a snowman. Father went out cursing and scolding to drive him away, but Cheng Yi seemed nailed to the ground, unmovable no matter how hard he was pulled. In the end, Father had no choice but to let him be. By evening, Cheng Yi could no longer hold on and collapsed to the ground with a thud. Though Father scolded him, he couldn't bear to leave him there and eventually had someone carry him back to the Cheng residence. I heard that after he returned, he ran a high fever and kept rambling deliriously. A few days later, Sister Wanna and my mother-in-law came to see me, their eyes swollen like walnuts. Wanna's tears fell pattering. "Xiao Tang, I'm sorry." My mother-in-law held my hand, trembling. "Good child. Mother also deceived you." I stood there in a daze, not knowing what to say. Wanna suddenly knelt down. I knew all along that he wasn't Brother Yong. She was trembling as she cried. "But I'm afraid of becoming a widow at such a young age, so I just let the mistake continue. He refuses to take his medicine properly now, and keeps calling out to see you. I know I have no right to ask you, but, Xiao Tang," my mother-in-law knelt down as well. "Mother knows our Cheng family has wronged you, but Ye truly regrets his mistakes. I beg you, come back with me to see him just once." I lowered my head, staring at the mud stains on the tips of my shoes, my heart tangled like a mess of threads, but in the end, I just shook my head and whispered, "You all go back, I'll have a new home soon." The matter between Cheng Yi and me quickly spread through the village. Some said he was infatuated, some said he deserved it, and others called me heartless. When Huaijin came to see me, he brought a bag of freshly roasted chestnuts. He didn't ask anything, just sat beside me and peeled them one by one to feed me. "Is it sweet?" he asked. I nodded, broke the chestnut meat in half, and stuffed one half into his mouth. "Xiao Tang," Huaijin suddenly said, "if you want to go see him." I leaned closer into his embrace and asked him seriously, "Huaijin, if I don't go see him, is that really cruel?" He gently stroked my hair. "Kindness is not weakness, and refusal is not cruelty. Do what you want to do. And no one can force you to do what you don't want to." I nodded with a vague understanding. "Then I won't go." In the blink of an eye, it was the 8th day of the 2nd month, and the weather that day was absolutely perfect. I was munching on the sugar-roasted chestnuts Huaijin had brought me when the wedding planner burst into the room in a flurry. "The bride is still eating, it's time to leave." I hurriedly stuffed the remaining half bag of chestnuts into my sleeve and boarded the bridal sedan chair wearing that bright red wedding dress. The tassels on the bridal veil swayed back and forth, making me want to sneeze. As the wedding attendant helped me out of the sedan chair, it suddenly became eerily quiet outside. I couldn't resist lifting a corner of the veil and saw Cheng Yi standing at the Zhao family's doorstep. He was terribly thin, his face as pale as paper. But his eyes were frighteningly red. "Xiao Tang," he called out to me in a hoarse voice, so faint it was almost inaudible. Huaijin instinctively stepped in front of me. I tugged at his sleeve and peeked out from behind him. "Cheng Yi, are you here for the wedding feast?" Cheng Yi's lips trembled violently. I came to." "The bride cannot lift her own veil," the wedding matron exclaimed anxiously, stomping her foot, then muttered under her breath, "What a foolish girl." Suddenly, Cheng Yi fell to his knees with a thud, startling everyone. "Xiao Tang, I've wronged you, I deceived you, I betrayed you, I deserved to suffer the consequences." He took the small wooden rabbit out from his embrace. Its ears had been mended perfectly. "I know you hate me, but could you give me one more chance?" "I don't hate you." I tilted my head to look at him. Huaijin says that hating someone takes so much energy. I'd rather save that energy for peeling sugar-roasted chestnuts. Cheng Yi froze, his expression as if he had been punched in the face. I added, Huai-Jin also said that if you promise to be good to someone, you have to keep being good to them. You promised to be good to Xiao Tang, but you didn't keep your word. I looked into his eyes and said seriously, so, I can't give you another chance either. Cheng Yi froze for a moment, then suddenly burst into laughter, laughing so hard that tears streamed down his face. You don't hate me, you actually don't hate me. The little rabbit slipped from his hand, and he staggered to his feet, pushing through the crowd like a drunkard. A child pointed at him and shouted, "Madman, madman," but he seemed not to hear, stumbling away into the distance. I watched his reeling figure, utterly unable to understand. He's really strange. Isn't it good that I don't hate him? I tugged at the matchmaker's sleeve. Granny, why does he look so unhappy? The matchmaker sighed and gently patted my hand. Silly girl. Sometimes not hating hurts more than hating. As she spoke, she seemed to suddenly realize something. Quick, put the bridal veil back on. Put it on. I quickly lowered the bridal veil, and once again, my vision was filled with nothing but a sea of red. The celebratory music began to play again, and Huai-Jin's warm hand held mine tightly. I could feel a slight dampness in his palm, yet he still led me steadily toward the wedding hall. First bow to heaven and earth. I knelt down properly, while Huai-Jin nearly tripped over his own robe hem, causing all the guests in the hall to burst into laughter. Second bow to the parents. Father secretly wiped away tears from his seat, and I could hear him sniffing, bow to each other. As I bent down, the bridal veil suddenly slipped to one side, and I happened to see Huai-Jin's ears flushed bright red. He hurriedly reached out to fix it for me but ended up pulling the entire veil off. Amid the uproarious laughter in the hall, Huai-Jin stared at me in a daze and suddenly whispered softly, "My lady." I blinked, then grinned and said, "That sounds wonderful. Cheng Yi used to only call me little fool, so this is how it feels to be called wife." Huai-Jin seemed to have found some treasure, calling out again and again, "Wife, wife, wife." Each call was gentler than the last. The wedding matron anxiously slapped her thigh beside them. "Oh dear, don't be so impatient, groom. It's not time for the wedding chamber yet." Huai-Jin had already scooped me up into his arms and was striding toward the backyard amid a chorus of teasing cheers. I buried my face against his chest, listening to his heart beat fast and loud, like a rabbit hopping wildly inside. In the bridal chamber, illuminated by the glow of red candles, he laid me down on the wedding bed, which was covered with red dates and peanuts, and called out once more, "My bride." This time, I didn't answer. I simply reached out and touched his burning cheek. Outside, Big Yellow was chasing his own tail in circles in the courtyard, while father and the guests were still drinking and laughing in the front yard. Suddenly remembering something, I pulled out that half packet of chestnuts from my sleeve and rustled one open. "Would you like a chestnut? They're really sweet." He smiled and shook his head, gently blowing out the red candle. "There are more important things to do." His voice suddenly became as sticky and sweet as honey, held tightly in his embrace, breathing in his pleasant scent. I couldn't help but burrow deeper into his arms. I thought to myself, I must tell him tomorrow. The chestnuts today were sweeter than usual. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.